Have you ever experienced this feeling? You sit at your desk. A mountain of books is stacked in front of you. Or maybe it's a glowing computer screen filled with documents, lectures, and notes. You tell yourself something like this: today I'm going to study for 10 hours. Today I'm going to push myself harder than ever. The clock starts moving. Tick, tick, tick. At first, everything feels productive. You highlight sentences, you write notes in the margins, you underline important concepts. You feel like you're doing everything right. But slowly, something strange begins to happen. You read the same sentence 5 times, and somehow it still doesn't make sense. You turn pages, you take more notes, but your brain starts to feel foggy, heavy, disconnected. By the time night arrives, when you finally close your laptop and lie down in bed, something feels wrong. You spent the entire day studying, but instead of satisfaction, you feel exhausted and strangely empty. You ask yourself a quiet question in the dark. How did I work so hard, yet accomplish so little? And here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes blind hard work is actually the enemy of intelligence. The story of Nick. Let me tell you about someone named Nick. Nick is the type of person everyone calls hardworking. His friends admire his discipline. His parents believe he's extremely dedicated. Every night, the light in Nick's room stays on until 2 or 3 in the morning. On his desk, there are empty coffee cups, energy drink cans, stacks of notebooks filled with highlighted paragraphs and messy handwriting. From the outside, it looks impressive. It looks like someone who is truly committed to success. Nick believes the sacrifice is necessary. He often tells himself something he heard growing up. Success requires suffering. So he pushes harder. More hours, more notes, more caffeine. But if you look closely at Nick's eyes, you'll notice something. They're red, tired, and slightly unfocused. Every few minutes, his hand reaches for his phone. Not because he wants to scroll, but because his brain is begging for escape. After hours of forcing information into his head, his mind is simply overwhelmed. The next morning arrives. Nick walks into the exam room. His heart beats faster. He opens the paper, reads the first question, and suddenly, his mind goes completely blank. Everything he studied the night before disappears, like fog dissolving under sunlight. Nick stares at the page, confused. How is this possible? He studied for 10 hours. He sacrificed sleep. He did everything he thought he was supposed to do, but somehow, none of it stayed in his memory. When the exam ends, Nick walks out slowly. His shoulders feel heavy. Not just because of the bad result, but because something deeper has cracked. His belief in hard work itself. But Nick's problem was never a lack of effort. His real problem was a misunderstanding of how the human brain actually works. Your brain is not designed to absorb information endlessly. It is designed to filter information, to forget most of what it sees, and to conserve energy whenever possible. In other words, your brain is built for survival, not for nonstop studying. When you push it beyond its natural limits, something unexpected happens. Your brain doesn't become more efficient, it becomes defensive. Your attention begins to drift. Your thoughts start wandering. Your focus collapses. And the strange part is, you don't even realize it. You still feel busy. You still feel productive. But in reality, your brain has already stopped learning. Psychologists call this passive learning. You're technically studying, but your brain is barely doing any real work. It's like pouring water into a bucket that has a hole in the bottom. No matter how much effort you put in, the knowledge keeps leaking out. 1. Parkinson's Law. There is a psychological rule called Parkinson's Law. It states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. If you give yourself 10 hours to study something, your brain will stretch that task across 10 hours, but not efficiently. You'll take longer breaks, you'll check your phone, you'll reread sections without thinking, You'll stare at the wall pretending to process information, but if you only give yourself one focused hour, something completely different happens. Your brain shifts into a different mode. Focus becomes sharper, energy becomes concentrated, your mind becomes more alert. Ironically, when time is limited, your brain often learns faster. Less time can sometimes produce deeper understanding. 2. The Pareto Principle. Another powerful idea is the Pareto Principle. It suggests that roughly 80% of results come from 20% of effort. In studying, this means something important. Most of the information in a subject is not equally valuable. Some concepts are foundational. They unlock everything else. Smart learners don't try to memorize every detail. Instead, they search for the small set of ideas that explain the entire system. They focus on the roots rather than every branch of the tree. Once those core principles are clear, the rest of the material becomes much easier to understand. Studying smarter often means studying less, but thinking more deeply. 3. Active recall. Here is where most students make their biggest mistake. They believe that reading equals learning, but reading is one of the weakest forms of studying. Highlighting text feels productive. Rewriting notes feels productive. But neither guarantees that the knowledge will stay in your memory. Real learning begins when you close the book, when you remove the safety net, and you ask yourself a simple question. What did I just learn? Your brain suddenly struggles. It searches through your memory. It tries to reconstruct the idea from scratch, and that struggle is exactly what strengthens memory. This technique is called active recall. It forces your brain to retrieve information rather than simply recognize it, and retrieval is what turns information into lasting knowledge. The role of sleep. Here's something that surprises many people. Your brain does not store memories while you study. It stores them while you sleep. During deep sleep, your brain begins reorganizing the information you encountered during the day. It transfers important ideas from short-term memory into long-term storage. It strengthens connections between neurons. It removes unnecessary noise. In a way, sleep is the moment when learning actually becomes permanent, which means something important. When you sacrifice sleep to study longer, you're destroying the very process that makes learning effective. It's like trying to build a library while constantly throwing the books away. The real goal. So maybe the real goal is not to study longer. Maybe the real goal is to study better. Not 10 hours of exhaustion, but 1 hour of genuine focus. Not endless effort, but intentional effort. Because intelligence is not measured by how much pain you endure. It is measured by how clearly you understand the world. Nick eventually realized something important. His problem was never laziness, and it was never a lack of discipline. His problem was believing that more hours automatically meant more progress. Once he changed that belief, everything shifted. His study sessions became shorter, but his understanding became deeper. He slept more, but remembered more. And slowly the frustration disappeared. Because the truth is this: your brain is not a machine designed for endless input. It is a living system that learns best through rhythm, rest, and focus. And sometimes, doing less is exactly what allows you to learn more.